You talked a little bit about vision. One of the guys who I know you count high as a mentor was Bill Torrey, the architect of the Islanders. And one thing he said to me at one point was, it's one thing to have that vision and to have that idea of what you want to build. It's the steps that you take along the way, though, to put that in place. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, in any one of those three pillars, the steps along the way and the adaptations that have to occur over time as things change.
Well, on the hockey side, Bill Torrey won 4 consecutive Stanley Cups with the Islanders in the early 80s. It'll never be done again. In a salary cap system, I think you're going to be lucky to win 2 cups in 10 years. But you'll never win 4 in a row again with this format. And so I asked him once, I was a young GM, it was 1992, I was a rookie GM at Hartford. And I said, you know what, can you give me 90 seconds or 2 minutes on what your philosophy is? Can you distill it to something that I can learn from? And he said, basically, you need to win 16 games to win a Stanley Cup. That doesn't change. There's 4 playoff rounds. It's a best of 7. You need to win 16 games. And every team that wins a Stanley Cup wins 16 games in the playoffs. He said, so you're going to play 4 series. You're going to play a big team. You're going to play a speed team. You're going to play a team that relies on special teams. And you're going to play a hybrid of any of those. So you need to have all those elements in your lineup. You need to be big enough to beat a big team, fast enough to beat a fast team. And so that's when I get into the concept of specialization and top 6, bottom 6. We try to cram our top 6 with skill. Our bottom 6, we try to have bigger body guys that are good at specific jobs, like winning faceoffs, blocking shots, killing penalties, fighting. And the best example of that that you could remember recently was the U.S. Olympic team in 2010 in Vancouver. And we announced that team at Fenway Park on January 1st of last year. If you go back and look at the newspapers around the NHL on January 2nd, we got absolutely crucified for the players we did not take. We didn't take Mike Modano. We didn't take Scott Gomez. And so we got hammered in all the papers. One guy, he's an idiot, in New York wrote that only one player that we selected could actually make the Canadian Olympic team. And we're taping this, so let's say his name, Larry Brooks, is an imbecile. But we took Chris Drury, and we got mocked for taking Chris Drury. And anyone who watched the Olympics, Chris Drury was one of our best players. When I was asked why we took Chris Drury, I said, well, we took Chris Drury because he's Chris Drury. And like, he's a guy we knew would rise up and play whatever role. He ended up being one of our best players. So that's, to me, we've taken Bill Torrey's principle, which is really 3 sentences or 4 sentences, and turned it into a blueprint, which is, okay, we're going to have specialists that are better at specific jobs than. If we'd have just taken the 20 best players, the U.S., Canada would have killed us, and Russia would have killed us, because we don't have that talent pool yet. We had to take people who are better at specific parts of the game than some of the players they took. And it almost worked. Phil Kessel at the crossbar in overtime. It almost worked.